Hi, my name is Candace Kelchner, and today we'll be discussing Erik Erikson's psychosocial development. So, to begin, we are just going to look at an outline of the basics of psychosocial development. So, it was created by Erik Erikson, whose ideas were really influenced by Sigmund Freud. However, the differences and discrepancies are that Erik Erikson really valued and thought that society and culture played a big influence on how someone develops. And he also thought that people learn and develop, continue to develop throughout their lifespan, not just childhood, as Freud thought. Moving forward, Erikson's psychosocial development theory consists of 8 different stages, and within these stages, a particular crisis is presented, which leads to either a virtue or a negative outcome being produced. So to get started, we're going to look at stage 1. So stage 1 begins during the first year of life, so 1 year old, and this produces the crisis of trust versus mistrust. So when we think about a child, they tend to be helpless and really depend on their parent or some sort of guardian to help them, to provide them a sense of security and develop a sense of trust where this child knows that should something happen, that there is someone there to help them, to guide them, and to protect them. So this sense of trust develops the virtue of hope, that there is someone to help them should a situation arise in the future. Now, say this child has a maybe neglectful parent or a parent who does not provide this sense of security. Well, this leads to the development of the sort of mistrust or suspicion within the child, and that's the negative outcome. So this, we can also see here from the picture, a sense of trust. So that is the goal and that is the hope to achieve within this first stage. So moving forward, we have stage 2. Now, stage 2 begins at 18 months and progresses about until a third year of life, so about 3 years old. Now, during this stage, the crisis of autonomy versus shame is presented. So during this time period, this time frame, children are really encouraged. Erik Erikson really says that this is important, that children build a sense of independence, that they start to build a sense of accomplishment, that they can do things on their own. And those, we'll see later how those little baby steps really produce more virtues down the road. But for now, this sense of being able to feel like they can do something, that they can accomplish something is very important. And acquiring this leads to the sense of independence and will. Now, say a child has a parent who is very critical, who criticizes them consistently, who harps on them consistently. This will develop a sense of like, oh, maybe I'm unable, and this inadequacy leads to a sense of shame, like, oh, maybe I'm incapable of doing this, maybe I can't do this by myself, maybe there's something basically inadequate, which leads to this sense of shame or the negative outcome within this stage 2. So moving on to stage 3, this takes place around ages 3 to 5, and this introduces the crisis of initiative versus guilt. So here, children are now students, they're entering the classroom, and they're beginning to develop those interpersonal skills. So by being in the classroom environment, they're interacting with other students, they are learning how to do different activities, they're learning how to behave within the classroom setting and different expectations. So this presents a child to be very curious about their environment and to ask questions. So by asking questions, by leading different activities, by engaging with other students, these children during this time period begin to develop a sense of purpose, of what it is, they know what their goals are. They know how to do things, how to perform things. Now, say if a child does these things, but then when they ask questions, you know, they're scolded for being maybe too curious, or, you know, a teacher or a parent isn't patient with them. Then they develop a sense of, you know, guilt for asking so many things, and, you know, pondering and inquiring, and maybe they don't feel as confident in their ability to lead. This leads to a sense of feeling inadequate, feeling like they're not, maybe not quite enough in their abilities. And this is the negative outcome, with virtue being, or I'm sorry, with purpose being the virtue of this initiative versus guilt crisis. Moving forward, we have stage 4. So during stage 4, these children range from about age 6 to 12, and this is where the industry versus inferiority crisis takes place. So during this time period, children are really looking to seek approval from their school, their teachers, their other peers. So what happens is teachers, they form a curriculum, or I'm sorry, their curriculum is based off of things that society deems important. So students who take these pieces of curriculum and they really work to develop skills that pertains to whatever it is the class activity is, or whatever it is that they're learning in school, and they develop these skills that society deems useful. They develop a sense of competence, that they are learning something and they're performing something that can be useful in society. Now, say if a student is trying to reach these, you know, requirements, and trying to, you know, trying but maybe not really understanding or reaching these particular pieces of criteria that society deems important, and they're not meeting it, it develops a sense of inferiority within their within themselves. So they don't feel as though they have this industrious mindset that they can attribute and contribute to society. So, and with competence being the virtue and the inferiority being the negative outcome of this scenario. Now moving forward, we have stage 5. So stage 5 takes place about from 12 years old to 18 years old, and this introduces the crisis of identity versus role confusion. So during this time period, 12 to 18 years old, it's about middle schoolers to high schoolers. So we have students who are starting to think forwardly. So maybe, you know, they're beginning to think, oh, well, what do I like to do? How can I apply that to a major? What college do I want to go to? What do I potentially want to study? Or maybe they say, like, you know, is college something for me? Maybe I'd like to go to a trade school, or maybe I'd like to learn some sort of craft, or what would that craft or what would that trade be? So this involves a lot of intrapersonal, knowledge and intelligence. So being able to know who one is, what their role is in society, and how they can fit within society. So being able to have this complete understanding and a sense of who they are is a sense of fidelity, which is the virtue of stage 5. So knowing who they are, what they can accomplish within society, what their role is. But say we have someone who maybe lacks that intrapersonal, self-reflective, self-analytical sense of, maybe they don't know who they are, maybe they don't know how they fit into society, or what their role could be or could potentially be down the road. So this sense of confusion, where they fit in, can lead to a sense of rebellion, which is the negative outcome of stage 5. So stage 6 takes place from about 18 to 40, and this introduces the crisis of intimacy versus isolation. During this period, we have adults who are looking for a sense of intimacy in the form, you know, of a loving relationship, something that's long-term, that's full of commitment. And people who find this, they find this form of intimacy, they find this type of long-term relationship, can develop the virtue of love. Now, what happens is, if someone is unable to develop this sense and unable to develop you know, this form of intimacy with someone, it can lead to the negative outcome of isolation, where they feel a sense of, you know, disconnection in, you know, a relationship sense. So moving forward to stage 7. Stage 7 is approximately around 40 years old to retirement, and this is when adults, they have a job, they have a family, they're generally raising children, and during this time period, they also tend to give back to society. So give back in the form of charity, joining different organizations, somehow producing some sort of help towards the community that they live in and to the society that they live, or that they're a part of. So giving back, this sense creates the virtue of care. So they're caring for others, they're caring for their family, they're caring for their children. That's the virtue that we can develop within the stage 7. However, the negative outcome from this is being unproductive, is feeling unproductive. If you reach this stage and during this time period you feel as though, you know, I don't have these things. These things as in, like, I don't have maybe a family, or I don't have children to raise, or I don't have a source or a way that I'm giving back and providing support and care to my community and to society. So that can create a feeling of just being unproductive. Now, our last stage, stage 8, this starts around 65 and persists until death. So this final stage creates the integrity versus despair crisis. So over here, we have our picture of our wonderful elderly lady, elderly citizen right here. And, you know, she's looking off into the distance, and let's say she's reflecting, reminiscing on her life, and she feels as though she has a sense of accomplishment. She saw the things she wanted to see. She traveled the places she wanted to go to. She has a loving family. She has several grandchildren. She had that job that she dreamt of when she was a little girl. And she has a sense of accomplishment. And this sense of accomplishment and being able to look back and feel this sense of completeness, that she's done the things that she wanted to do, it gives her the virtue of wisdom, being able to almost have like this sense of closure, that she hopefully doesn't have many regrets, that she can look back and say, I did the things that I wanted to do, and I feel very satisfied with the life that I led. So that is the sense of wisdom, which is the virtue within stage 8. Now say, if we had a different lady and she looked back at her life and she said, well, you know, I didn't do this, or I'm too old, but I wish I had done this, or, you know, I really regret not doing that. And they have a sense of just looking back at their life and feeling as though they didn't accomplish all the things that they wanted to do, creates a sense of dissatisfaction with the life that they had lived. So that would be the negative outcome of stage 8. So just in a nutshell, before we close, all of these different virtues and negative outcomes shapes the way that we live our life. Now, hopefully we have more virtues than negative outcomes, because Erikson believes that with these virtues, the you know, gaining more of these virtues and living out these virtues that, you know, we collect during these different stages can lead to a more productive and healthy life. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.